Well, for more on ISIL and the international coalition's pledge to destroy them, we're joined live by Thomas Sanderson. He's in Meredith and the United State of New Hampshire. He's a senior fellow with CSIS Transnational Threats Project. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Pakistani Taliban has now pledged its full support to ISIL. How will this affect the U.S.-led airstrikes, or do you think it will?
Well, I don't know if it'll impact the airstrikes. It certainly provides a bit of a boost for ISIS and anyone else who's supporting them. And it also could mean that some of the very well-seasoned fighters from the Taliban could make the visit or the trip over to Syria. And of course, some already have gone from Pakistan and Afghanistan. So I think it does provide a propaganda boost. It could provide a personnel boost, people with specific skills that ISIS might be lacking. They could also benefit in that way.
I see. More than 24 ISIS fighters have been killed overnight near the town of Shadadi and another 5 around Kobane. This is worth noting, but how much faster would this effort to wipe them out be moving with a more serious ground offensive?
Well, it would depend on who's doing the ground offensive, of course. And just because we would put forces on the ground, whether it's the U.S., Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, doesn't mean that, number one, we would be succeeding or to the degree that we would think we could. But number two, it could also draw many more fighters, especially if those were U.S. boots on the ground. So we may end up killing a lot of folks, but we would be generating even more in their place.
Thomas, there was news today that Turkish forces are keeping people from entering Syria. Is this to keep them from joining the fight?
Well, I'm not sure exactly who it is they're preventing from going in, but I imagine that they don't want any cross-border traffic for a number of reasons. One, certainly ISIS folks could be coming back on their side to conduct attacks or for recuperation, which is primarily what they've been doing. But I think they're very sensitive about the border right now. They also worry about some of the Kurdish fighters from inside Syria coming in to join their Kurdish brothers inside Turkey. The number of complications along this border are pretty significant.
Who is crucial to this fight against ISIS? Who's in and who's out, and who are we waiting on?
Well, I think we're waiting on the Iraqis and the Kurds, the Peshmerga, to improve their skills at this point, their equipment, the training. We're also, of course, moving forward with the effort with the Saudis to train 5,000 or more fighters in Saudi Arabia for use against ISIS forces. But one thing we were discussing the other day is even if we're able to convince those moderate opposition fighters in Syria to fight ISIS and not fight Assad, who they really want to fight, the question is, what happens if they lose? What happens then? Do we train more and send them back into the battle, hoping that those will win? At what point do we put in more serious fighters to handle ISIS? If ISIS is able to beat all of the opposition fighters that we train, equip, and direct against them, we're in a very big mess.
Thomas Sanderson, thank you so much for making the time live in Meredith.